If you feel like some cases were never truly explained, know that you're not alone. I'm Detective Ozma, and my mission is to uncover the evidence behind the mysteries they'd rather leave buried. Tonight, I'm opening a file that began on a dark roadside in New Hampshire, but quickly became one of the most debated UFO cases in American history. September 3, 1965. Exeter, New Hampshire. What started as a frightened teenager running into a police station in the middle of the night soon turned into something much bigger, involving police officers, military investigators, the U.S. Air Force, and eventually even the United States Congress. At first, it sounded simple. Strange lights in the sky. Red lights. Moving low over the fields. But then came the details. The object wasn't silent from far away, it was silent up close. It wasn't seen by one person, but by multiple witnesses, including trained police officers. And when the official explanations arrived, even the witnesses themselves said they were wrong. When I opened this case file, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another UFO story. It was a documented confrontation between eyewitness testimony and official denial. Evidence 1, the first reports before the main encounter. Before the famous Exeter sighting, reports of strange lights had already been appearing across the region. In the weeks leading up to September 3, multiple residents in the Exeter area described unusual lights and strange aerial activity at night. This matters because it shows the case did not begin with a single isolated witness. There was already a growing pattern. And during the early hours of September 3, Officer Eugene Bertrand reportedly encountered a woman on Route 101 who claimed a strange object with flashing red lights had followed her car. At the time, he observed lights in the distance, but nothing conclusive. That would change only hours later. Evidence 2, Norman Muscarello's encounter. At approximately 2:24 a.m., 18-year-old Norman Muscarello arrived at the Exeter police station visibly shaken. He had been walking home along Route 150 when he noticed 5 bright red lights in the distance. At first, he thought they were police cars. But then he realized the lights were above the trees, hovering. He later described the lights as so bright they illuminated nearby houses and fields with a deep red glow. This is the moment the case truly begins. Not because of what was seen, but because of who documented it next. Evidence 3, police officers witnessed the object. Officer Eugene Bertrand drove Muscarello back to the location. And according to both men, they saw it. A large, dark object. Bertrand later described it as being roughly the size of a barn, moving silently, with red lights flashing in sequence. It appeared to hover low over the field, rocking slightly. In some later accounts, witnesses estimated it was only about 100 feet away. Bertrand was reportedly so convinced it was a physical object that he drew his service weapon, then decided not to fire. Instead, he and Muscarello retreated to the patrol car and called for backup. That backup came in the form of Officer David Hunt. And according to his later statements, he saw it too. Evidence 4, official police reports and immediate documentation. After the object rose and disappeared, all 3 returned to the station and filed separate reports. This is one of the strongest parts of the Exeter case. It wasn't just rumor. It wasn't a story told years later. It was documented that same night by multiple witnesses, including 2 police officers. Officer Hunt later stated that he heard a B-47 bomber passing afterward, but insisted the aircraft looked and sounded completely different from what they had observed before. That distinction would become central later, because the Air Force would eventually try to explain the case using military aircraft. And the witnesses strongly disagreed. Evidence 5, Air Force investigation and congressional attention. The U.S. Air Force investigated the incident through Project Blue Book. Initially, several explanations appeared. At one point, the suggestion was that witnesses had mistaken stars and planets distorted by atmospheric conditions. Later, attention shifted toward military aircraft involved in an operation called Big Blast, a strategic air command exercise involving heavy air traffic near Pease Air Force Base. But officers Bertrand and Hunt formally challenged that explanation. In December 1965, they wrote directly to Project Blue Book, insisting the object was silent, low, close, and unlike any aircraft they knew. No wings. No tail. No engine noise. And perhaps most importantly, the timing didn't match. Then came a critical moment. In February 1966, Lieutenant Colonel John Spaulding, from the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, issued a response stating the Air Force was unable to identify the object observed on September 3, 1965. Unable to identify. Not explained. Not resolved. Just, unidentified. And by April 1966, the Exeter case had reached the U.S. Congress during public hearings on UFOs. A local incident had become a national case. And if you've made it this far into the file, you're starting to see the pattern. Multiple witnesses. Police reports. Military investigation. Contradictory explanations. And finally, official uncertainty. Hypothesis 1, the conventional explanation. From a cautious perspective, the Exeter incident may be explained by military aircraft operating during the Big Blast exercise. Aircraft approaching or departing Pease Air Force Base could have created unusual visual effects, especially at night, under stress, and at low visibility. Some researchers later proposed aircraft like KC-97 tankers or B-47 bombers, whose lighting configurations and flight angles might create the illusion of a large hovering object. Others suggested atmospheric distortion, bright approach lights, or misjudged altitude and distance. Under this interpretation, the case becomes a powerful example of how human perception, darkness, and military traffic can combine to create something that feels impossible. Not deception, but misidentification. Hypothesis 2, the unresolved interpretation. The alternative interpretation focuses on what the witnesses insisted could not be explained away. 2 police officers and 1 civilian independently described a silent, low-flying object with bright red sequential lights. They rejected aircraft explanations. They challenged the official timeline. And even the Air Force later admitted it could not identify the object. What makes Exeter compelling is not a single extraordinary detail, but the consistency of the core testimony. From this perspective, the case may represent something genuinely unknown, whether advanced technology, a rare atmospheric phenomenon, or something that still remains outside conventional explanation. Not proof of extraterrestrial origin, but a case where the official answer never fully matched the evidence. The Exeter incident remains one of the most documented and debated UFO cases in American history. I'm Detective Ozma, and I'll keep digging through every report, every contradiction, and every piece of evidence they hoped would disappear. Some files are closed. Others are only buried. If this case made you question how many explained mysteries were never truly solved, leave a like on the video. It helps keep these investigations alive, and brings more hidden files back to the surface. And if you, or someone you know, has ever witnessed something impossible to explain, leave your story in the comments. Or, if you'd rather stay anonymous, send it to the email pinned below. Because maybe the next file I open will be yours.